Hello everybody, welcome back to my review of A Journal for Jordan, a movie review, starring Michael B. Jordan as Sergeant Charles King. Don't really know didn't recognize any of the actresses. Do the typical thing, again there's spoiler alerts in this, spoiler alert. But I'm going to go through the plot as best as I can remember it. This was another one with head jumping around scenes, so I'm not going to be able to go scene for scene. But just give you the plot synopsis best I can, talk about the setting, give you overall grade, and some major themes. Don't really have any, no movies really struck me as very similar that I've seen, so I don't have any similar movies for this one. But this is a drama romance. Basically starts off in 2007 or 2006, early 2000s. You get a couple flashbacks to the 90s or 80s, and then a couple flash forwards to 2018, 2017. But the movie starts off, you get, which turns out to be a premonition of the actual final scenes, but just Michael B. Jordan flicking a lighter, some kids in Iraq, and just sand and dust in the air in a real ephemeral type of setting. And then that goes on for a little bit, and then you basically cut to Dana Kennedy, I think that's her name, but she's a senior editor at the New York Times, and so she's walking into her building, goes in there, has some pictures on the desk. She has 2 or 3 good friends in there, 2 females and 1 guy from work. And right at the beginning, you can already tell that Michael, the Sergeant Charles King, is dead at this point in the movie. So she leaves the office, and goes back to play with Jordan, who's at this point his baby, 1 or 2 years old. And she's sitting there, looking at pictures. Baby's crying a bunch, and she goes and gets the journal and starts reading out of it, and basically says to the baby, just some line that Sergeant Charles King wrote about, it's okay to cry if you're a guy, if you're boys or a man or something, because the baby was crying a lot. After that scene, you jump back to the either 90s or 80s. But basically, Dana Kennedy is going to her parents' house. She's got a mom and a dad, a sister and a brother, and they're going to go back for a barbecue. I think it's probably 4th of July barbecue. But Dana's in the car singing, going to the parents' house, goes in there, meets up with her brother and sister. Brother and sister smoke a joint behind the house. She stays at a hotel. And then, I think it's either the first day, yeah, I think that's the first day, and then the next day they come back to the house again, or it might have been the first time, but that's when Sergeant Charles King, Michael B. Jordan, he's Dana's dad was the drill sergeant for Michael B. Jordan. So he's in there, he puts up a picture, just a pinpoint drawing. We do a bunch of pinpoints for painting. And so they have Dana and Sergeant Charles get introduced there, and then you can tell there's some flirtation going back and forth, and then you trying to get some romantic tension going on. Dana talks to her dad, and her dad's like, just tell him you forgot your keys and you need to ride back to your hotel. So she does that, and then they're talking a little bit, joking about his taste in music. She gets dropped off at the hotel. He says the next day, would you like me to come pick you up? He does that, and then they go to a diner. At the diner, they're just sitting there talking about, again, just getting to know each other. Michael B. Jordan's talking again about his interest in painting and art and Claude Monet. And I'm actually big fan of Claude Monet myself. But they talk about the Met Gala in New York, which I've been to, and I've seen Claude Monet's, and they are absolute slappers. 100% recommend Claude Monet's paintings in person. Very, very expressive. The color palette is actually fantastic. But they just talk about how Charles has never gone and seen the Met or any Claude Monet's in person. So they eat breakfast, then they go to the cookout, and there's some flirtation back and forth. There's a joke between Dana and her sister basically saying, you only got Charles because you saw him first. just again when she came in and saw him hanging up the picture. So a couple flirtatious interactions at the barbecue, and then basically Sergeant Charles leaves. I'm not sure where he goes back to. I'm not exactly sure of the setting. It's clearly America in like the 2000s, but not exactly sure. Dana clearly lives in New York. I'm not exactly sure where he's from or lives, but it's not New York. So that pretty much ends there. He goes back to wherever he's from, and then the next kind of thing you see is him calling Dana, and I guess Dana's dad had given Jordan her number, and he didn't end up calling her for like 3 or 4 weeks. And so then he calls her, and they have some back and forth. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me? But then they just basically start talking on the phone for a good amount of time. I don't know, 3-6 months. After they talk on the phone a while, and you also learn as well that Sergeant Charles King has a daughter. I forget her name. I don't even think she comes into the movie at all. At least I didn't recognize her, or like it wasn't apparent who she was. He's also got a daughter, but start long distance chatting with Dana, and then they basically arrange he's going to go up to New York to see the Met and just to see her. And again, at this point, it's very just getting to know each other type of dating romance situation. So he goes up to New York, and she's got the couch all made up for him. She's like, just so where there's not any expectations. And then they go out to dinner. They kiss a little bit. Sergeant Charles makes the move. I think he smells like oregano. And then they go back to her place, and then she's like, oh, well, maybe you can sleep on one side of the bed. And so he's like, yeah. He sleeps on one side of the bed. Again, they start making out a little bit more. Nothing happens. And then the next day, I think is when they go to the Met, and they see the Claude Monet. After that, again, another night out, a lot of kissing now. And then they come back again. And then it's starting to get a little hot and heavy, but she's like, we should stop. Still not exactly sure if they've consummated their relationship yet. But that's kind of where it ends up there. And then she's like, let's I can't show you all of New York in one day, so you're gonna have to come back again. And they basically plan to meet up again. And then you get like a 6 months later type of deal. And then again from there, they go back and forth again. They start hooking up for real or dating for real. But basically, like I said, I can't go scene for scene, but he's like, Dana also tells about how her dad cheated on her mom, was having an affair. And so Michael's like, I think over the phone, or no, in person, but like, let's be my serious, for real girlfriend. And so they have like a Christmas party with her 4 friends, parents, the work people from the New York Times. She's talking with her friends a little bit about it. After the party ends, she's basically like, yeah, I'm already your girlfriend. And so that's kind of like when they go steady, they become official. But Dana doesn't want to follow him around like a military wife, basically. And so, again, back and forth of, again, the locations, the meeting up in New York, the dating, stuff like that. Then at some point, now they're dating official, and then and again, at some point you're getting flash forward scenes of like Jordan when he's older. There's one scene where he's like 3 years old or something, and you see a bunch of red balloons fly away. This is pretty early on in the movie. And it's like, again, coincidental with a picture of red balloons with Michael B. Jordan after he's already dead. And so they're dating. She's at the New York Times, and then 9/11 hits. 9/11 hits, and again, Sergeant, he's being deployed he's in the Army. And so they're on the phone, real frantic. They're literally watching the planes hit the buildings, and they're like, basically Dana says she just wants to have a baby. Sergeant Charles is like, raises it up like, let's get married, and they're both like, yes, yes, we'll get married. Sergeant Charles is on the shooting range with his guys, they're all excited. And then that's kind of where it goes. But they agree to have a baby. Dana gets pregnant, clearly. And then the one day, like, he gets deployed to Iraq for the first time. Everything goes smoothly on the first time. He goes there. Dana's about to give birth. He's supposed to go on leave to attend the birthing. And there's also another scene before this one where Dana's like, maybe he's cheating on me because he doesn't show up. One day she's sick. They're going steady at this point. One day she's sick. He's supposed to meet her at the hotel, and he doesn't call her, doesn't meet her. And one of his platoon members or army mates' wife had an emergency C-section or something, and it was just like a melodramatic scene about, again, not attending to her, and just, normal relationship fighting type of scene. But where was I? Oh, they're getting married. She's pregnant. He's not going to, and she can kind of tell that he's not going to be in attendance of the birthing because of the army. Gets real upset. Doesn't seem to play out too much after that. He comes home, meets Jordan for the first time. They're still getting along pretty well. So about this time in the movie, you get a flash forward scene of Sergeant Charles is already dead, and Jordan comes back from school. He had gotten in a fight. He was born, again, both the parents are pretty dark-skinned black people. He was born just a little, Sergeant Charles on his mom's side just had a lighter skin tone, so he just came out a little lighter skin tone. Has a fight at school. People are bullying him about not being black. His father's probably not a soldier. He's probably in prison. And at this point, this is when Dana basically says, Jordan, you're old enough. Here's the journal that your father had written for you. And again, same time in the movie, you get flashback to the most of the plot is when Jordan's very young or before he's even born. But Dana giving Sergeant Charles the notebook or the journal before he gets deployed for the first time to say, write lessons to your son, teach him stuff, tell him who you are, be open and honest, stuff like that. So you have the scene of him getting bullied at school. He gets the journal, go back to the older times, and Sergeant Charles gets deployed again. And then, I'm not really sure exactly when you see like he gets deployed again. This isn't like when you see him like die, but that's not till like the very, very end. It's kind of getting there. And then, so I'm not even exactly sure again what happens there, but Jordan basically emails one of Dana's friends from the New York Times basically saying, let's go visit Dad's grave. And so they do that. They basically, Dana and her friend are not Dana's not very happy with her friend, but she's just like, it was all Jordan's idea. So they get on a plane. He also says he wants to meet his sister, Sergeant Charles' other's kid, but they're getting on a plane and they're going to visit the grave of Sergeant Charles. They get there, they go to the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, and then that's kind of when you get the actual scene of, Jordan says, how did my father actually die? I mean, I know you told me he got blown up in an IED, a car bomb, but just get more detail. And that's when you get the scene of, again, just Sergeant Charles going out with his platoon. Dana says he wouldn't put his soldiers through anything that he wouldn't go through, and he could have taken the day off or just not going on the patrol, goes out on the patrol. And that's when you see, again, the initial ephemeral type of scene. Passes some Iraqi children playing soccer, has this buddy clicking the lighter, and then he just hits with an IED. And it's not like a super violent scene, but he's getting clearly hit in the chest or some shrapnel's gone through his heart. And he basically just pulls out his picture of his wife and kid, and it just kind of stumbles around. His nickname's Top for being the leader, the Jefe, El Jefe, and like, we got you, but clearly passes away. And it's a reminiscent scene between Dana and Jordan. After that, Jordan takes Dana the next day to the grave of Sergeant Charles, at which point all of the the Charlie Company, whoever he commanded like 105 people. And the project says at the beginning, this is, I guess, based on a true story. I did not look into it much at all. But has a very nice memorial service at Arlington National Cemetery for the military. And, Jordan reads a passage from the journal. They're all very, it's a very touching scene. I did not cry. At certain movies I will cry. I do like crying. If you can make me feel shit, I'm definitely in. But I did not cry on this one. But I thought it was a good one. And that's really kind of the end of the scene. The funeral service, memorial service. And that's kind of the end of A Journal for Jordan. Again, not scene by scene, but pretty close. And so my overall grade, I'll give it a B+. Thought it was certainly entertaining. I liked the whole thing. Wanted to bump it up to something super novel. Again, maybe it feels like a super. Again, I just don't know how realistic it was to a true story. But I thought it was thoroughly entertained for a romance drama. I thought it did its part. Again, just normal relationship stuff going back and forth. Major themes, military families. Again, my family was not a military family, but my mom's was. So she was very familiar with moving around to bases and stuff. Like I said, my grandfather's currently on the, once you have a military member pass away, it's a pretty long wait time until you actually get the service at the Arlington National Cemetery. So our family is currently on the wait list for that. But I don't know. Again, just typical military type of family. Major themes, relationships, cheating. With the scene where she's like, Sergeant Charles is like, I'm not your, not in a mean way, but like I'm not your dad in terms of like cheating on his wife. When they're going back and forth about initially starting dating. That's really about it. Like I said, I don't have any great major themes. Like I said, I thought it was entertaining, liked the whole thing. And probably no similar movies because I just don't have any ones that jump to my head. So overall, and again, this was directed by Denzel Washington, so I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I recommend you go watch A Journal for Jordan. Thanks for watching.